Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In this one today, we're going to be taking at none other than the Aries Lee Enfield. Yeah, I'm not too clued up on Lee Enfields or historic firearms or anything like that, so if you're going to want information like that, you're not going to find it here. Go and look at forgotten weapons, anything like that, those that know a lot about these old type of rifles. But from an airsoft standpoint of view, let's get right into it. So this is a bolt action rifle from Aries. It's got real wood and metal parts. It's based on the Lee Enfield platform. This one I have here is a sample. They're not actually released officially here in the UK yet. They haven't come through the official distributor. Some shops I think have grey imported them, but this is the one that comes with the scope and the cheek piece. So the scope I have here, it is a bit of a pain to fit. Let's do this in real time. Let's see if I can get this fitted quicker than I did before. So you have these little screws on the side here which have springs. Actually that went straight in, so perhaps not as bad. The first time I fitted this on there, it really did not want to go on at all. They've got to be some of the worst sling points I've ever seen on an airsoft rifle. Honestly, they're terrible. Take them off or shim them, they're diabolical. They're just the worst fitting things ever. However, scope's on. There is an issue with these scope mounts, which I'll get later on in the video with the close-up, if you're watching this on the Jaeger Precision YouTube channel. However, it's a bolt action sniper rifle. It's set on the Lee Enfield. It comes with a scope in the box. It's very cool indeed. It has the correct reticle. The eye relief on it is absolutely to be desired. You really do have to get this close, so my eyeball's like an inch from the scope. Now the problem with this is, for those dedicated snipers you out there that like to keep your eye through the optic while you're loading the rifle. Now watch what happens here. So right, I've got a good view through the scope and I've hit myself in the face. So now I'm off the optic. It's the eye relief's gone because it's pushed my head back, and that hits you in the cheek. Pain in the ass. But the finish on it's nice. The clicks, the adjustments on it work really well. It doesn't move anywhere. I think the only thing that rattles on this rifle are the sling mounts, so nothing else moves at all. This rifle does have some damage on it, so it has been passed around the retailers, I believe. So there's damage all onto the bottom of the stock here, and the sling point is actually bent, but it's not the actual sling point where it's bent is the issue. It's just the way they've mounted them on the rifles. The fit and finish is really loose. The wood is absolutely fantastic, better than the S&T, I would say. It really is a nice finish, and I would not feel like if I had this rifle I'd have to retreat it. I'd just leave it as it is. The way the wood looks and the finish on it is just very, very good. Some of the best I've seen. The Car 98 was very good as well. So the safety is found on the left hand side, and the rifle does have to be cocked for you to put that safety on. It is quite a long throw safety, and you also do have like a live fire indicator as well for the bolt, like the firing mechanism, much like the S&T one. So as you fire it, this bit will shoot forward, only like half an inch, but it's a nice little feature on there. The metal parts are actually really nicely put together. So it's just these sling points which have a massive gap in the mount, so you would have to shim them or remove them. They are, honestly, they are dreadful. But it's got all the correct markings on that you'll see there. Very good indeed. And this rifle with a scope, with an optic on there, I think just looks absolutely fantastic. It would be nice if I get a similar scope for the S&T one. I'm not sure if they're doing one yet or one's become available. But everything that I'll say in this review, in retrospect, this rifle is more than double the price of the S&T. These are very expensive rifles. The magazines, they've got a steel casing and then a plastic insert that goes in there. These actually feel really good, better than the S&T I would say, and they do click into place really nicely. There we go. And the way this system operates is pretty much identical to the Aries Car 98 one. If you haven't seen that video already, go have a look at it. And basically the hop unit and barrel assembly move on a spring. So you'll see, I don't know if you'll see it there, there's the hop unit. So you'll load around, that will push around into the hop unit, and then you'll push the hop unit back into the rifle. And what that means is the hop unit can move forwards and backwards, and it can line up with the magazine for a direct feed and then go back into the rifle. What this means they don't have to do is fit a feed tube or a tappet plate system or anything like that. So just a more unique way of them doing it. Trigger isn't bad at all. Not as good as the S&T Car 98, S&T Lee Enfield, but not bad at all. It's just a bit spongy. However, let's get into the Chrono. Let's Chrono Sing. We're going to Chrono 0.2 gram BBs first, then 0.43s. You'll see on the when I Chrono 0.43s, there was just 1.2 lodged in the mechanism somewhere, just ready to be loaded. That's why the first 0.43 readout was going to be higher. That's just a 2. Don't worry about it. So we'll get to that just now, and we'll be back on video in just a moment. So yeah, respect 1.6 joules, just over 1.6 joules or just under on the 4.3. So not bad at all from the Lee Enfield here. However, let's get this thing on the bench and take a closer look, and then we'll get back and I'll tell you my final thoughts on the Enfield. So here it is, the Aries Lee Enfield. Now this is the one that has the cheek piece and the scope. The wood looks absolutely fantastic. The magazine, sorry, the finish on these is absolutely fantastic. It's lovely and smooth, and it just does feel like quality when you've got it in your hand. They do clip in really nicely. I'm not sure how much these magazines are, but I would say this magazine does feel better quality than the S&T. The sling points, however, have got to be some of the worst I've ever seen. This fit and finish is, to be honest with you, it's just pathetic. The gap in between the sling point is just ridiculous. Now on the S&T one, the fit and finish on these sling points is so good that all you have to do, these don't have to be tight for them to be non-wobbly. You just have to nip that down slightly and they will literally sit in place and they won't move, or they'll just have a bit of resistance where you can push them up and push them out of the way. The Aries ones are just absolute garbage. The wood, like I said, is really well done. The front section here and how they've done that is really well made. It does feel quality. It's not wobbly at all. So that is really good. Let me flip this round here. Now this rifle did have a lot of damage on it. So you've got damage all on the wood down here. You've got damage on the side, damage here. The sling point has been damaged. And And this gun has probably been around a couple of retailers because it is a sample from the distributor. So again, very loose. It's actually the mount's actually loose in the stock as well. Which, let's see. Yeah, the screws just aren't tight. But there's nothing you can do about that. I've tried. So it's a pain in the backside. You'd have to take them off, or you'd have to shim them. It really is not very good at all. The markings, I believe, are correct, so that's nice. The scope, it's a nice addition that you can get the correct scope with the rifle. I think running this without a scope would just be, it's not going to be as good, especially if you're a dedicated sniper role. That being said, I have further criticisms because the eye relief on the scope is that bad that when your face is sitting here, so you have to have your eyeball right close up to the scope. Let's say you charge around into the chamber, or you cock the rifle back, this will actually hit you in the cheek. That's how close it is. So, and you'll see here, you get that pushback off the hop unit because the hop unit moves backwards and forwards like on the Car 98. Now watch this. The scope mount interferes with the cylinder. So the scope mount bolt is actually hitting the cylinder. And I found this because the gun was actually lovely and smooth. So, a bit hard to do on the bench, but the action was lovely and smooth as I was firing it through the Chrono. And then I popped the scope on because I didn't have it on already. And then all of a sudden the action felt like garbage. And it's really scratchy and horrible. And it's literally, it's the scope mount. It's off. So, you know, not the end of the world, but it's got to be mentioned. The trigger is actually quite nice. The scope itself is not bad quality at all. We got nice clicks on it. It does seem to operate. It has the correct reticle. You know, if you're running one of these rifles, you're going to want an era correct scope on there as well. The cheek piece, again, I don't know much about the real Enfields. I'm just going to reiterate that. I don't know what these little sections here are for. Whether as you're firing, you're meant to rest your thumb there. It just doesn't seem... It doesn't feel comfortable that sitting where your hand is. So if you're firing this rifle as you would normally fire it, this is not comfortable at all. Why you'd have your thumb and your hands that far back, I don't know. Again, I don't know much about the real rifle, but just from a comfort and airsoft point of view, this really ain't the. I would have preferred it just to be either slightly smaller or just smooth. Again, the real one's probably like that. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying when I was testing it, it just wasn't very comfortable, this section here. Why that's there, I don't know. Yeah, even trying different ways to have my hands, it just doesn't make sense. So the safety can be found on the left side. It can only be put into safe when the gun is cocked ready to fire. The mag release is found in the magwell. Actually really intuitive mag release, both on this and the S&T one. The hop, if I can get this on camera here. The hop is here. So what you'll see is the bolt hits the hop and then pushes the hop back into the rifle. And this is basically how they can have the magazine sit where it needs to be without having to need a feed tube or a tappet plate like the S&T one. The tappet plate on the S&T does seem to be a weak point, and a lot of people have been having issues with that. I haven't with mine yet because I haven't really used it that much, but it's currently in 1 million pieces being upgraded. So yeah, it's for realism, it's great. It's going to be a more reliable system compared to the S&T one, so that's a plus. Let's take this scope off. And again, you just release these captivated screws. And the rifle scope comes off like that. Then you've got your irons, which can be adjusted with the knob on the top. Very nice clicks indeed, and it does fold out the way. So if the rifle is cocked ready to fire and you do knock that up, because the hop is under spring pressure, the bolt will actually fly back. And what I will say is you'll have a space for a BB in the chamber to load into the barrel. There is also a space just under the loading feed which is still in the hop unit, so it still moves backwards and forwards, because the reason why is, you'll have seen from the chrono test, I completely emptied the gun, there was nothing in it, nothing else was firing. I put 0.43s in, and then still a 0.2 come out first, so there's got to be a little gap here in the hop where it just holds that round, and because there wasn't any spring tension underneath it, it fired. So not that it would be difficult, I think, to get it to fire with the magazine out, but you know, it's got to be mentioned. It is a strong trigger pull on that thing, and it is quite a long trigger pull. So again, I think the S&T one had a slightly better trigger. That being said, let's get back on camera and we'll talk about my final thoughts on this thing. So you will see there, I've got some niggles with this rifle. It is an expensive rifle. People are going to be paying a lot of money out for this, and I think the issues like this and the scope and the other bits and pieces that I've criticised about this thing, for what the rifle costs, these issues shouldn't be there. So it goes down as a bit of a con, and it does go against it in the review, but I didn't have any of that issue with the Lee Enfield from S&T, and it's pretty much half price or less than half price of this rifle. The wood is nice, you know, I won't have to do anything there. I won't have to spend time refinishing the wood like I've had to do on the Lee Enfield twice, because I did it first and then someone wanted the wood, so I swapped it out with theirs, and then I've got to do it again. So, but I'm going to do that on this because the wood looks great, the action looks great. Upgradability wise, if it's running the same system as the Car 98, it's going to be a VSR style hot rubber and in a barrel, which is great. The hop unit's probably going to be a little bit proprietary because of obviously the size of it and the way it spring loads into the action. But you know, a quick spring upgrade, perhaps a new hot rubber and in a barrel on this thing, and you'd be good to go. But still, it's money spent on an already expensive rifle. You know, the hot rubbers and the barrels are probably similar to what you get in the Striker series. They're not fantastic hops and barrels, but most people will replace that stuff anyway. So again, with this being on the 80 Precision YouTube channel, I'm going to be more critical than I am usually, but I just want you guys to know what this thing is actually like, and what to expect for your money, and what you're going to have to do later down the line if you want it to be competitive in any way. So this has been the Aries Lee Enfield. I really do like this rifle. I wish they put those finer touches on it that they did on the Car 98, because that rifle was beautiful. Having played with both now, I would be very comfortable in saying that I would get the Car 98 over this. The only thing I didn't like on the Aries Car 98 was the magazines. They were just very finicky, and the system that you use. But that might not be here or there. If I had to choose between one of the two, at the moment it would be the Car 98. One extra thing I'll say with the Lee Enfield, they come in these crates. Oh. So it's like a plastic crate, and this is how they ship. Now this is a cool little gimmick, I'm not going to lie, but in terms of usability, it's not great. And the reason for that is it doesn't really offer much protection for the rifle when it's inside. It can move about, and you know, the proof is in the destruction there that you'll have seen on the close-up, that the rifle can get damaged. The other thing is carrying this thing, so you've got one handle on each end. So unless you're carrying a lot of your guns into the safe zone like this, the only other way to carry it would be to have it on its end. Now what would have been nice would have been to have a handle sort of mid-length down like a carry case, and then it'd be a bit more usable that way. And then the other thing I'll say is, although it looks sturdy, they really are like vacuum formed out the flimsiest plastic. So if you were having one of these Enfields, they are an expensive rifle. I would not be carrying mine to and from game zones in this thing. The only thing I would use this box for is storage. I mean, it looks great, but in terms of usability, it's crap. Thanks for doing this review. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope I've answered some questions. If you've got any more, hit them down in the comments below, and I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.